Okay, Mayor, it's your discretion.
Thank you. And good evening. Thanks for bearing with us. I know we're starting just a couple minutes late. Welcome to the Marion City Council workshop for the month of December of 2022. We'll start with our pledge. I'll ask Councilman Haynes to lead us in that pledge.
One nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Councilman. Let the record reflect that all council members are present and accounted for this evening. We'll begin with our review of the minutes of the November 9th and November 14th regular meetings, as well as the November 9th closed session. I'll ask council, do you have any corrections to those minutes as they're presented to you this evening? Okay. Hearing none, they'll be up for your approval on Monday evening. Our next order of business, as you can see, there's a ghost chair here. Joe Vigliotti has moved on to another elected office. Therefore, we have not just a vacancy on council, but also a vacancy as the mayor pro tem. So the first order of business tonight is for the council to select their new mayor pro tem. So with that, I'll ask the clerk to distribute scraps of paper for them to write their selection on. While they think long and hard about what they're doing. The process to fill the vacancy will be discussed at the end of the meeting in new business. So once as discussed and announced, we'll begin receiving those who are interested in that. On that note, we have a couple of public hearing items tonight, some ordinances that we're going to be hearing from the public on, as well as our normal non-agenda items and agenda items. I do want to make it very clear that those times are not to be used to talk to the council about why you should be the next council person. Save that for your written things, not to be discussed this evening in public. So if everyone has completed their forms, I'll ask the clerk to collect and tally up the votes. What do you think, Madam Clerk? 10, 15 minutes to count those up?
No. We have 4 votes for Judy Fuller.
All right, so the new mayor pro tem will be Judy Fuller. So you can take your seat tonight or you can wait till Monday. Either way is fine with me. I like having space to spread out. That's right. All right, with that over and done with, I'm going to now open the public hearing. We're going to do these 3 individually because they're all very different from each other. So we begin with a public hearing for ordinance 09-2022, amendment to restricted general business district. To go over this briefly, the restricted general business district was created to kind of create a buffer between general business and the residential areas up on East Baltimore Street on the eastern side of the city. There are some difficulties with that district in terms of how it can be used. So we asked the Planning Commission to come up with any changes to it they thought would be appropriate to make it a little more easy for property owners or developers to do anything with it. What they've suggested, if I'm not mistaken, is simply adding residential abilities to that zone. Is there anything I'm missing? I guess I'll look at Councilman Hand. Do you recall anything I'm missing out of that?
And then we had the general other similar businesses. So.
That and adding the wording of similar type business. Yeah, okay. Mr. Weeper, do you have anything to add to that?
No, that's just what I was going to add. Thank you.
Perfect. Okay. With that, I'm going to open the public hearing for ordinance 09-2022, amendment to restricted general business district. You may come up to the front, announce who you are, and give us your 3 minutes worth of words. All right. Hearing none, I'm going to keep that open while we work on the other ones as well. Our next public hearing that I'm opening is ordinance 10-2022, amendment to yard exemptions. This is pursuant to, applicable to those houses that are on a corner lot, essentially meaning they have 2 front yards. Gives them the ability to alter the setbacks that they can have different fence styles in different ranges from the property line or the sidewalk. Was there anything additional to that that I've missed? Okay. Very good. Mr. Weeprick, anything to add to that one before we accept comment?
Yeah, I think that was a fine summary.
Perfect. All right. Would anyone like to speak to us regarding ordinance 10-2022, amendment to yard exemptions? Okay. I'm going to order a round of coffee for the gallery tonight. All right, again, I'm going to leave that one open as we move on to ordinance 11-2022, amendment to downtown business district. This is adding to our downtown businesses the ability to open distilleries, and what's the other word that I'm looking for? Meaderies, and wineries. Ability to sell more alcohol downtown. It's something we're a little behind the curve on doing, but better late than never, I'm going to say. So with that, I'm willing to hear from the public on ordinance 11-2022, amendment to downtown business district.
Good evening, everyone. Chris Tillman, 10 York Street, George's on York, and also representing the Chamber of Commerce. We are in favor of this this amendment, certainly. As not only as the ability to sell alcohol downtown, which is kind of a pithy way of saying it, but it's also to bring in the kind of businesses that are much more of a touristy attraction to bring people downtown. One of the things also, and these would be, if I'm not mistaken, use by rights, not special exceptions.
I don't have it in front of me, so
Okay.
I can't, but
All right.
I believe we're adding it.
I thought maybe you might have. I think so, but I don't remember off the top of my head. Use by right. And just as a question, whether it's been decided to look at other, whether or not other uses that are special exceptions could be moved over to use by right. In particular, bed and breakfast inns, and I say that because I had to go through that process to open George's on York. We had to actually get a special exception. It seems to me that's something that you would want to have as a use by right, and I don't know if that's been looked at or discussed. With the opening of an additional wedding venue here in town, that is something that may actually become an issue down the line. So just something to think about and look at. But beyond that, yes, we are in favor of the current amendment. Thank you.
All right, thank you, sir. Any other public comment on ordinance 11-2022? All right, hearing none, I'm going to leave all 3 public hearings open for a few more minutes in case anyone is late to the party, fashionably or not so. We're going to move on to asking the council if they have any conflicts of interest on anything on the agenda this evening.
No, sir.
Yes, sir.
All right. I'll now open it back up to the public for comment pertaining to non-agenda items. If you would like to speak to the council on anything you don't see on this piece of paper, this is your opportunity to do so.
Hello, Barbara Cook, 314 Clubside Drive. I went to a yard sale a month or so ago, and I ran into this laminated map of Taneytown and so forth, and I'll offer it to anyone that would like it.
Thank you very much.
Chris Tillman again. I have 2 things that I want to bring up. One is that the Chamber of Commerce and the Lions Club are discussing the potential for one of those welcome to Taneytown signs that you see at the entrance to a lot of towns in the area that have, the Lions Club and meet, when they meet and things like that, and the various churches and stuff. Some of them even have some of the main downtown businesses on them. Apparently there was one here years ago. It was taken out by Streetscape. So the question is about putting it back. And I do know that I talked to Barb Hiltebridle about this, kind of as a point person from the Lions. She's talked to, for example, the Hitchman about doing it down there at their end of town. But she said that she spoke to the city, and I'm not sure exactly who she spoke to, so I don't want to cast any aspersions, who told her that was not going to be something that was going to be allowed under the sign ordinances. And so my question is, are we really shooting ourselves in that foot? I think that that's something that needs to be looked at and discussed. Every town, just about every other town around has these things. Manchester in particular has a couple of fairly new ones that look like either they're on state right away or very close to state right away. Thurmont also has a couple of fairly new ones, and very attractively done, very nicely done. But I've been told for 5 years that, oh no, we can't do that. Well, my question is, why not? And if there is something in the sign ordinance that says we can't do it on private, obviously the state doesn't want it on there right away. But if there's something in the sign ordinances that says that we can't do this on private property, I think we ought to look at that. The other thing that I have is I listened in this evening on the County Planning Commission work session, wherein they discussed the Taneytown road network and county transportation master plan as pertains to the Taneytown area. And I have some things I'd like to discuss about that, but I don't have time here to do that. But my real question is, why were we not more involved in that particular process and on that call? So I will leave that. If anybody wants to talk about what was talked about there and what's in this plan, I'm more than happy to discuss that at a more convenient time. All right, thank you.
Thank you. Any other takers for public comment on non-agenda items? All right. Hearing none, we're going to enter into our resolutions, ordinances, and agreements. And with that, I am going to close the public hearing for Ordinance 09-2022, Ordinance 10-2022, and Ordinance 11-2022. That is hereby closed at 7:46 p.m. Up for adoption on Monday evening, we have Ordinance 08-2022, amendments to the Ethics Ordinance. This is to go along with new requirements from the state, keeping us in line with what they are requiring. I'm going to ask either from Mr. Weeperk or Mr. Gullo, do you have any input on this before we discuss further? Okay. I know this was introduced last month. Yeah, there you are. Are you muted or just, you're muted? Nope, still muted. There you go.
Third time's the charm. Okay. We did receive the approval from the State Ethics Board
Okay.
since the last time we met.
All right, so this is in line with them, so it's just up to us to approve on Monday evening. Are there any questions or comments from council on this topic this evening? All right, that will be up for your approval on Monday evening. Next, we have Ordinance 09-2022, of which we just finished the public hearing for the amendment to restricted general business district. Is there any discussion from council on this ordinance? All right, I'll ask the same of you for Ordinance 10-2022, the amendment to yard exemptions. All right, nothing from council. Mr. Weeprick?
Mr. Mayor, just a quick point of clarification. I wasn't quick enough to unmute on the restricted general business or the downtown business district. Section C is the special exception part of that district. So the additional uses are still going to be by special exception.
Okay, very good. All right, still on ordinance 10-2022. I believe no one had anything for that. Ordinance 11-2022, the amendment to the downtown business district. Ms. Weeprick did just give us the update on that those will be included as special exceptions. All right, hearing nothing. And finally, resolution 2022-15, this is the water allocation for the month of December. I need someone to fill Mr. Vigliotti's role here.
The math check.
The math checks out there, thank you. I felt a hole inside of me that needed filled there. All right, perfect. Any additional comment on the water allocations? All right, well, that gives us 5 items that'll be up for adoption on Monday evening. So come prepared with your votes for that, council. Next, we're going to go into our city manager report. Mr. Weeprick, what do you have for us this evening, sir?
Okay. My written report's kind of short this month, and we've already touched on the pending ordinances. And let's see, Roberts Mill Road, Broad Street, contract documents are pending. We have received the contract documents back on the sewer rehabilitation, but the Roberts Mill Road, Broad Street are still in the contractor's hands. I do have a couple other items that were not on the written report. The first of which is just a quick update from the State Highway Administration regarding some recent pedestrian safety discussions. I know Mayor Wance, in a virtual meeting with the administration, did talk with them about the lead pedestrian interval for the crosswalk signals at the 140 and 194 intersection. Received word today that since that lead pedestrian interval had been introduced across the state, that the administration has now implemented guidelines for where that will be used and where it will not be used. And not too much of a surprise, our intersection does not meet all those standards. However, because there are nearby communities that do have the lead pedestrian interval that also do not meet the current standards, the request can still be made and processed, and hopefully will be looked upon favorably. State Highway Administration would like something in writing from us, so as long as I have consensus to move forward with that, I can get that to them this week. They just want something on city letterhead, basically, so that if there is an adverse effect on vehicular traffic throughput, they can pull out the piece of paper and say, remember, you asked us to do this. So if we have consensus, I think pedestrian safety has obviously been a concern we've talked about a good bit lately, but I didn't want to move forward and put something in writing without being 100%. So Monday night, you can let me know, or if you want to let me know tonight, that's great.
Well, while you're talking, let's have that discussion here with the council.
Great.
The idea is, I would assume that when a pedestrian presses the button wishing to cross, when the light turns red, it will cause a delay where all lights are red for a few seconds to kind of give them a lead to get into traffic before traffic moves. Generally, I think it's about 5 seconds that they give them.
Yes.
But that is adjustable. The downside of that, and why they want to cover their butts, is that means you're going to have longer red lights at certain situations, which means traffic could back up a little bit further during those times. Keeping in mind, it only happens when the button is pressed. It's not every cycle. So there is kind of that downside to it. How does council feel about this idea?
I know I probably sound a little biased because I cross that intersection every day, but I do think it's a good idea, absolutely, especially with the dance center and kids crossing. I don't see why we shouldn't do it.
I don't think you're biased. I think you're speaking from your personal experience.
That's what I'm
I think I think anyone that lives downtown or walks downtown would agree with you, and they're not biased at all. Other thoughts, other opinions, concerns? Do we want to move forward with the request?
I think consensus tonight is a good idea.
All right, let's submit that request, okay?
Excellent. Thank you.
All right, do you have anything else for us tonight, sir?
Sure. A couple other pedestrian items. We also chatted with State Highway about the idea of now that the city has entered into the lease arrangement with Trinity Lutheran Church on Church Street to allow use of that parking lot as public parking, the idea of introducing a crosswalk at the intersection has come up. Councilman Haynes brought that to my attention recently. And State Highway that is open to looking into that. There may be some physical challenges on the side of Church Street that has the sidewalk next to the church. There are stormwater inlets, storm drain inlets, where curb cuts would have to be made to facilitate ADA access. So the crosswalk might have to be on the opposite side of Church Street, but they are open to exploring the idea. So we'll have a report probably after the new year starts on the feasibility of that. And lastly, when the winter season is coming to a close, State Highway is going to return the pedestrian crossing center marking that was at the Middle Street crosswalk. Some of you may recall that for a brief time there was a pedestrian crossing sign along the center line of the road there. It did eventually succumb to truck traffic, I think, but State Highway is willing to put it back there, but they typically don't maintain them over the winter because snow plows and thrown snow tends to be very challenging for those. So once we're out of snow plowing season, that sign should be returned. So some progress on the pedestrian front.
Perfect.
So wanted to touch base briefly on our wastewater treatment plants and our capacity issues there and our dealings with the Maryland Department of the Environment. So we have, as has been made known, we have had compliance issues at the treatment plant. And we have a response pending to MDE's latest correspondence, just waiting for our engineer, CDM Smith, to firm up some of the support documentation, and that letter will go back out to them. We expect a counteroffer to come back from the Department of the Environment. And this may be a good opportunity for us to develop a more public plan and perhaps even leverage this for our water sewer capacity planning in terms of how we might approach how we allocate capacity in the future. So we're thinking that it might be advantageous for the city to develop a compliance plan that's made public that we can provide regular updates on, much as we've done with CDM Smith coming and giving the council updates on capacity related issues and other issues at the treatment plant. This could be added into those sort of updates, but we might also start talking about, because we know that we do have ultimately limited capacity on the wastewater side. I don't think any of us can imagine a world in the next several years where we're going to be allowed to increase the plant capacity. So even with our capacity recovering projects that are in the works, there's still a finite number of how much flow can go through that plant. And this may be a good time for us to start working on a program or a plan by which it may not always be first come, first serve. So just wanted to put that out there, kind of introduce the idea, but also let you know that we are in talks with MDE still. And we can be expecting to hear something back from them probably in the next few weeks.
Appreciate that. I want to take that opportunity to kind of discuss with council, if you remember, it was posed to you with the ongoing issues, mostly about our inflow and infiltration, which of course, we have the project coming up that we're hoping to begin very shortly to fix a lot of the old sewer lines and fix this issue. That project, if it goes on schedule, won't be completed until probably next November, which means we're probably not going to see realistic data of improvement for another 6 months after that reliably. So we're talking about 18 months of really, we shouldn't be having any allocation conversations at that point until we get a good handle on what condition our system's going to be in once these repairs are completed, long overdue repairs. So I think council needs to consider perhaps Monday evening talking about whether it's a self-imposed moratorium on allocations or how we want to handle that. But I think we need to have that serious discussion because, as you can imagine, people are constantly knocking on our doors looking for water and sewer. And as we've said countless times, we're not there right now. And so I think we need to seriously discuss that. So I'll throw that to you to consider for Monday evening. What else do you have, Mr. Weebrick?
That'll do it. Happy to entertain any questions if anyone has them.
Questions for Mr. Weebrick on his report or the departmental reports?
Oh, I noticed on, I guess it's Parks and Recs, the professional services agreement for Memorial Park.
Yes.
They have us listed in Thurmont, Maryland.
But the zip code's right, so.
Yeah, I don't
All right.
think there's a 17 East Baltimore Street in Thurmont.
Don't know. Well, we'll make a note of that and we'll bring it up again under item 4 of new business, but good eye for catching that one. All right, any other questions? All right, Mr. Weebrick, thank you. We'll go to Mr. Gullo for a legal report. Sir, what do you have for us this evening?
Good evening. I hope you can hear me. We have 2 items. The first item is we talked about the ethics ordinance that you're going to adopt on Monday. That's going to require the financial disclosure forms to be changed. You do not adopt the financial disclosure forms. The Ethics Commission does. And we're going to try to get them effective sometime in the middle of January. The clerk is working on those right now. So you'll be set for that. It'll be pretty much the same, but need to know that you all will be filling out something a little bit different. The second item bounces off of what the city manager was talking about and what the mayor was saying for possibly discussion on Monday night. We have to make sure that when we develop a policy regarding allocation, that we continue the way we have tried to do it. Well, it's been 20 years ago now when we had an issue with water instead of sewer. And it can't be a blanket type of situation. So as you ponder this over the weekend, it can't be something where we just say we're turning the spigot off. There's a lot of people already in the process of building. We need to make sure that we come up with a policy about how we can regulate new things that come into the pipeline and how you can space that out over time. If it were money, I'd be talking about cash flow. That's kind of what this is related to. It's not about the total amount of development, but the flow of development, of how it occurs and when it occurs. So we really need to get some guidance on Monday of, do you want us to develop a policy that'll kind of work hand in hand with our capacity management plan? What Mr. Weebrick was alluding to was, if we don't come up with something ourselves, we may be forced to do something that is forced upon us by MDE in the form of a consent order. And we want to try to avoid that so that we can manage it ourselves, since there's a lot of things involved in that. So that's what we need to work on. And if you can talk about it on Monday night about how you'd like to see it, I don't think you need to come up with a policy. You just need to tell us to come up with one, and then we'll bring it back to you.
Okay.
And that's all I have. I hope you heard some of that.
We'll make out most of the words that you said. Any questions for Mr. Gullo on his legal report this evening? Okay. Thank you, Mr. Gullo. Moving into new business tonight. First item will be the monthly financial report. Comments, questions, concerns? How's council feel? All are right with the world? And I'll throw the same at you for the accounts payables. Any input? Okay, Monday evening, I'll be requesting your confirmation to reappoint to the Parks and Rec Advisory Board the following names: Kelly Bowie, Elizabeth Cheney, Jerry Hobbs, Emmanuel Harvey. They have all four served very well on our Parks Advisory Board, and so I'm very pleased to come back to you asking for you to reappoint them for another term. They are 3-year terms for that board. So Monday evening, I'll be requesting that. Do you have any comments on it tonight? All right. Next, we have approval of proposal for Memorial Park Expansion Project Engineering Services, address to City of Taneytown in Thurmont, Maryland.
Will they pay for it?
That's right.
How about that? That
How
would be
about
nice.
that? We'll send the bill to Thurmont. All right. Questions, comments, thoughts, and opinions on this one? I'll ask Mayor Pro Tem Fuller, is there anything from the Parks and Rec Advisory Board that you want to share regarding this project?
No, as always, Lorraine is very thorough.
Right.
I mean, she really does give us all the information.
Okay. So we'll start seeing what we come up with to do with the Memorial Park expansion. We are definitely in need of certain types of sports fields and other things in that area, so that'll be good. That'll be up for your approval Monday evening. Next, we have approval of special event permit application, the Alyssa Richards Memorial Car Show, which is scheduled for October 14th, 2023 at Memorial Park. And just looking to show some cars, serve some food, DJ. Sounds like a good time. Any comments or questions? Looks like the rest of city staff has signed off on it, so Monday evening, I'll be seeking your approval on that one. Next, we have from our good friends at CDM Smith, their 2023 rates, and I'm going to ask Mr. Wieprick to bring his smiling face back up on the television there and give us a rundown, if you would.
Okay. This is basically our annual routine. CDM Smith has been our consultant engineer for a number of years. They have a great deal of knowledge about our infrastructure as well as our history with MDE, both on the water and sewer fronts. Certainly feel it appropriate to stick with them for another year. And this is their rates for us to do so.
Is there a change in these rates? I don't have the old version.
Yes, there is. And let's see.
What else is new? They went
I know.
up.
I
They
expected them to.
did, they
Yeah.
did go up this year.
Yes.
They represent, I believe it's a 2.9% average, as stated in the cover letter.
Right. Okay. Comments from council?
Jim, I know, I was reading the resumes of all of these CDM Smith people. Do we use these people all the time? All of these people?
No.
So not for every project.
Okay.
Sue Hathaway, for example, is involved in the Roberts Mill Road Broad Street project. John Hamill is our principal rep. So he's the person that Brian Lubenow reports to. Brian Lubenow is our project manager, our project engineer on most projects. Abraham King is, for those of you who have been around for a while, Brian Lubenow is now in more of a role like Dave Stewart used to be. And Abraham is kind of moving into the role that Brian used to fill. So as we have projects, not everything is going, directly to the project management level. So we are trying, and they do, Brian does delegate things to the other engineering staff available. But these folks whose resumes are in here, and Santosh Devkata is also involved in the Robertsville Road Broad Street project. So these are the, I guess, the team that we deal with most often. But they do occasionally bring in resources from CDM Smith offices throughout the country. If there's expertise for a specific project or a specific problem that we're having, they'll reach out to other states, other offices, and tap the expertise. And as Brian has expanded his role, he's interacting more with different offices and individuals within the organization there. So he's kind of broadening his contact base and experience, from folks who have worked on similar projects in other jurisdictions. So everybody's busy.
Instead of seeing Brian like we did so often, we'll be seeing this Abraham person.
We will probably be seeing Abraham around the office more frequently. And actually, he does come to town more frequently than Brian does these days. But for presentations to mayor and council, you'll probably still be seeing Brian a good bit.
Okay.
And the council is going to notice that we are utilizing other firms for different projects, as you'll see from the Memorial Park expansion for engineering services. Just for timeline's sake, using other possibly more local vendors may help us with those projects, particularly in Parks and Rec. CDM Smith is great. They get busy. We give them a lot of work. And so we kind of need to spread that out so that our projects can move along as quickly as we'd like them to. So there is that as well. Any other questions from council on that? Okay. Next, we have our proposal for construction services for Roberts Mill Road and Broad Street reconstruction project. Mr. Wieprick, you want to run us through?
Sure. As soon as I can maximize my screen again here. Sorry. Okay. So the where are we here? Okay. Okay. So with a project of the magnitude of Robertsville Road, Broad Street, as some of you may recall, as was done with Streetscape, it's beneficial to have construction services provided by the engineer, somebody who can be in the field, who is familiar with the plans that have been developed and some of the more technical aspects of the construction, and making sure that it's done pursuant to the detail of the plan. Our DPW guys are great with smaller projects, with more basic things. But for a project of this magnitude, we felt it was best to bring in someone outside to help us along with the construction phase of the project. So as laid out here, CDM Smith has provided the scope to support the construction. Talks about, let's see, how many hours, how many days they expect to have someone in the field for the various components of the project. And that all comes down to a bottom line cost of $295,000, $295,040. So this was not, let's see, we did not include construction services in our engineering proposal, or this was not included in the engineering proposal for the design work of the road. So a separate component for the engineer now.
Okay, I think we got most of what you said there at the end, but the sound definitely got worse.
It did.
Comments, questions? Input, debate? No? All All right, well, that will be up for approval on Monday evening. Next, we have nominations for the Main Street Board. As you recall, we're kind of redoing Main Street now as an organization, we'll say. Jay Misha, our Economic Development Director, has done a tremendous job kind of putting together how he sees Main Street operating. If you recall, we passed a few things defining how the board's going to operate, redefining how they're going to operate. And so with that in front of you this evening is a list of names that he has requested to be on the board, and I personally agree with him. So I'm going to ask Monday evening to approve, and those would be Brandy Bollinger, Stephanie Pault Stevenson, Sharon Tillman, Dr. Jason Tate, Beth Lee, and Lauren Wieprecht. Any thoughts or opinions about any of those names?
I agree. I think they're excellent.
I think most of them, if not all of them, are familiar to you. They've been active members of the community for sure, if not downtown, definitely. So the good news there, if we can get them approved Monday evening, then we could start the new year with a fresh Main Street 2.0. I'm looking forward to that. All right. Last topic under new business, number 9 on this long sheet of paper for the agenda, is process to fill the council vacancy. As I did last time we had a vacancy, I'm going to hand all of that kind of over to the Mayor Pro Tem, which is now Mayor Pro Tem Fuller. I do believe that the last time it worked out quite well for us. We advertised for those interested to submit resumes and interest letters, and then that was kind of brought to council for them to make that decision. The way that it works in the city of Taneytown is, unlike boards and commissions, the mayor doesn't get to nominate somebody. This is all up to the council to decide who they want to serve with them. So Mayor Pro Tem Fuller, do you have any objections to that process, or?
No, I think that's probably the best way to go about doing it.
I think so. Very good. So with that, we'll officially announce, well, we'll put it on the city Facebook page and wherever else we possibly can to get the word out. If you're interested in serving the remaining, I guess, 2.5 years almost of Mr. Vigliotti's term, you can submit a resume as well as a letter of interest, and that can be delivered to City Hall to the attention of Mayor Pro Tem Fuller, or you may email them directly to Mayor Pro Tem Fuller at jfuller@taneytown.org. Any other questions, feel free to contact her. You can contact me, but I'm just going to tell you to contact her. So skip the middleman and talk to her. But feel free, if you have questions about serving, what it's like to serve on council, what it takes to serve on council, you can talk to any of these people up here, and they'll tell you all the highs and lows of what they do, why they do it, when it's good, when it's not. There's pros and cons to everything that we do up here. But absolutely, anyone who is interested, please put in for it. Get involved. Be a part of this show. It's important that people get involved and know what's going on. So with that, that'll be the process. Anyone on council have a?
Are we putting a timeline on it?
Let's put a timeline on it. We definitely should.
Well, I think we'd like to have them ready to go by the next meeting. I mean, not
Well,
January, right?
Not
So-
for January. I mean, that's too short of a timeline, I
mean,
You
think.
think?
Yeah,
Give them a
I think it is.
timeline to have the information to you so that you have time to present it to us.
Right. If we, let's look at this with a calendar device in front of us. If we aim for if you were to bring it in February, well, and that means that gives them to the end of January to submit, because we're not going to have them.
It just seems like that's an
It's a
awfully
long time.
to have that
It
in.
really is. I
Yeah.
agree.
And people who want to be involved and
exactly.
they know.
Yeah,
I mean, I think as long
It's the
as they
7th.
get, because the January meeting.
January 4th is the workshop. I think what we need to do is the vote should be held at a workshop, although we typically don't vote at a workshop, and that they are sworn in at the business meeting. of the council. So, I mean, we can say by the end of December, because that still gives them 1, 2, 3.5 weeks to do that,
Which is good.
I would think. I mean, Christmas is only 1 day out of those weeks, so they're not losing that much time with the holiday. I think that's reasonable.
Yeah.
Let's do that. What do you think, council?
Yes.
Everyone feel bad? The sooner we get the vacancy filled, the better I'll sleep at night. Yeah. All right, that's what we'll do. If you're interested, have it to Mayor Pro Tem Fuller by December 31st. End of day, December 30th, because 31st is on a Saturday. End of day, December 30th. Sound like a plan?
Yep.
All right, that'll be good. Have a full council again. So you will bring it to the council January 4th at the workshop. Hopefully you all can vote on it then, and we can get them sworn in on January 9th and go back to a full council. Everyone good?
Yep.
Yeah, I hear your heads nodding. Perfect. All right, that's what we'll do. Lastly, public comment pertaining to agenda items. If you want to talk about anything we've talked about tonight, come on up and talk to us more.
Chris Tillman again, and I apologize for monopolizing the microphone. But I do one of the things that I didn't say earlier, and I want to thank the members of the council and the city at large for their support of the Small Business Saturday event that we had. It was a really great event. We had a great time and a great crowd following, and people that followed us all the way up the street from business to business doing the ribbon cuttings. And I think it was a great day and really showed Taneytown at its best. Several quick comments. One is, and I go back to what we said earlier about the use by right as opposed to a special exception. And the only reason I bring that up is because it does add a layer of uncertainty to a business that's going to look at locating here as to whether or not they'll be actually allowed to have that use. And it does extend the time frame because then you have to have the hearing in front of the BZA and all that. So I would encourage that to be changed to a use by right as opposed to a special exception. I don't know if that needs then to go back to planning commission or not, but if that's possible to do, as it comes up for the vote, I would strongly recommend that. One other thing that in your discussions, you were talking about the crosswalk at Church Street, something that kind of came up during our Small Business Saturday walkthrough. Was the possibility of a crosswalk at Riffles Lane. There's a lot of people who do cross the street there. The parking lot is up Riffles Lane, so people come walking down there. If we're going to look at the one at one for Church Street, can we look at one for Riffles Lane while we're at it? And also, in that same vein, and this is a problem that seems to have come up more lately, where the unnamed alley goes down over the hill to Middle Street there by the post office. And it seems to be more recent. There have been a number of times lately that Sharon and I have both had run into this where people going to the post office have parked in that alley opening. So as we come down over the hill to get out on Middle Street, you can't get out. So I don't know what kind of signage that might entail, but it sure would be a good idea. All right, thank you.
Thank you for bringing that to our attention. Other public comment on agenda items this evening?
Good evening. I'm Tara Stanzik. I live on Creekside in Taneytown. I'm looking at the ethics ordinance, and I don't think in the code, just in the general code, I don't think just by looking quickly, I didn't see anything on there regarding like a list of definitions. I see that some of the other chapters include definitions, and so I think before accepting this or approving this on Monday, because you did not approve it yet, correct?
Correct.
Okay. Then I really do think that you need to include something because you're adding in some additional language in here, quasi-governmental entity. You know, so unless there's like a reference that you can point people in the right direction to what those legal definitions are, that would be great. So I think before it gets approved, it needs to have some definitions added in there for the public to be able to understand what the legal terms are. Thank you, Judy and everyone. And also, I hope everyone has a nice Christmas because I'm not going to be here.
Thank you, appreciate that. Any other comment on agenda items? All right. Hearing none, I will entertain a motion to adjourn from the council. May I have a second to that?
Second.
All in favor of adjourning signify by saying aye.
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 Anyone opposed, say nay. We are adjourned. Thank you all.